Hey you guys, it's Peter, and welcome to my channel, Peter Likes Books. Okay, you ready for this video? BB's over here, he's like, I'm ready for the video, Dad. So anyway, today we're gonna talk about why I don't like reading series or duologies. And this is a very good example of why I don't. So, I don't read series very often. I love standalones, okay? Now, if I read a book and it's in a series or there's like a part 2 or I don't mind the word sequel. I love sequels. I love the whole Halloween franchise. I love the Halloween 1 with Jamie Lee Curtis, Halloween 2 in the hospital, Halloween 3 didn't have no point to any of it, Halloween 4 picked up. I love all that, okay? I love it because they can stand alone. They don't have to be part of a series to make sense. What I can't stand, okay, is when you have to participate in something and it's expected of you by the author to continue, right? But they don't ever give you any warning about that before. So, I started reading Six of Crows for Booktubeathon, and that was about 2-3 weeks ago, right? 3 weeks ago. And I was really excited about this. It was like, I read it for my most hyped book. I have heard about this book forever. I bought it like last year sometime, Crooked Kingdom, which we're gonna talk about in a second. The sequel is now out. I listened to this on Audible, and I'll tell you why, because so many people told me, they were like, the Audible version is fantastic, there's a cast of characters, blah, blah. I will say this. I thought the cast of characters was very interesting. I like how they played it all out. I do not think that the voices match the people that they picked whatsoever. And it didn't really make sense because they would have different voices talking for different people, but they weren't talking in first person, so it didn't really make sense. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't understand why they chose to do it that way. It probably would have been better if they had just had one narrator for the whole book. That being said, the audiobook is 15 hours and 40 minutes long. Quite a commitment in an audiobook. And I usually read audiobooks that are about 9 hours, maybe less. And I really struggled getting into this. This was really, for me, outside of the first Harry Potter book, one of the first, what we call this, like a fantasy book. Fantasy books, world building books that I've ever read. I thought it was ingenious how it was done. I love the city of Ketterdam. I love the names of the people in here and their powers and all that kind of stuff. I thought it was very interesting. I love the fabricators. I loved everything about it. I thought it was very well done, okay? But I didn't get it. And it was really hard for me to catch on. And I will say, in justice to Lee Bardugo, probably this probably shouldn't have been my first book or introduction into that world, right? So I'm at about 10 hours of this book, and I'm thinking to myself, I can't go on. Like, I don't care. I am not invested in these characters whatsoever. And I still had 5 hours and 40 minutes to go. Well, around the 4-hour mark, like in between hours 5 and 4, I don't know the page numbers, the whole character development and the backgrounds of the characters are revealed, right? So we've now spent 3/4 of the book, okay, or 2/3 of the book, building up the story of getting us to where we're going, and then you introduce the background history of the characters. Now, here's what's wrong with that, okay, and this is my major criticism with the book, is that I could have gotten behind this book. I would have liked this book had I known more about the characters at the beginning and they had woven the, like, major story of the characters through it at the beginning, because then I would have been invested in the characters as they were going on this journey. But I didn't know anything about any of these people. Kaz Brekker didn't mean shit to me. I wasn't invested in him as a character or Jasper or whatever. But once I started knowing about their backgrounds, once I started knowing about, I mean, like, sexuality is woven through this, romance is woven through this, you know, abuse is woven through this, addiction is woven through this. I was really impressed with how it was done, okay? But it took too long to get there. I would have, if I wasn't reading this book for Booktubeathon and started it, and like everybody and their brother had said what a fantastic book this is, I would have DNF'd it. I mean, it was not good. So then I get to about, 4 hours left of the book, and then I'm consumed with it, right? Then I'm like, oh my God, because that's the whole story of what I'm not gonna ruin it for people if they haven't read it, but it's like the whole journey of what gets us there, and then it's the exciting part, right? And I was so into the book for the last 4 hours, 4 hours and 40 minutes or whatever. I was really into it. I drove around last night for almost 3 hours finishing this damn book. Well, if you haven't read Six of Crows, okay, I'm going to save something for you. I'm going to tell you a warning. I'm not going to spoil it for you, but I'm going to give you a warning that I wish somebody had given me. If you're going to read Six of Crows, if you're going to invest the time to read 491 pages or 15 hours and 41 minutes of an audiobook, be prepared to read Crooked Kingdom, because this book just leaves off. And you have to read Crooked Kingdom if you want to find out what happens at the end of this book. I was so pissed. I mean, I was driving around and I literally out loud in my car, I said, oh, no, ma'am. No, ma'am. I was so pissed. I was so mad, okay, that I had invested that much time and energy. And now this is what I understand. If this had been one book altogether and the book was 800 or 900 pages, then it would totally make sense that it took that long to build the characters, right? Because that would only be like the first third of the book. So really, where the character stories are introduced to us are in the first third of the duology. But I didn't understand. I thought they were two side-by-side books, okay? Am I so stupid? Do I not understand what a duology is? I've read other duologies that you don't have to do that with. And it was the exact same thing that kind of happened with Cinder. And I was like, are you kidding me? I have to read the next one to find out more? I mean, I thought they were 4 books about retellings of princesses. I was pissed. You know, and it's like, I remember, listen. My ex and I one time, we were up in some casino hotel, I don't know, and we always loved to watch those movies on demand. Remember, you could always get the movies. I loved going into the movie or going into the hotel room. The first thing I would do is pull out the remote and see what movies were on demand, and it would say like movies still in theaters. They hardly ever have that anymore, right? Anywhere in any hotel, unless you're at a casino. We loved going to the casino. So anyway, we were in there, and I remember one night we were going to go to the casino later, and he said, well, let's watch a movie and order some room service. And I said, okay. So we get on there, and he's like, oh, I really want to see Lord of the Rings. And I was real excited about it. Now, I should have known better, okay? I'm not an idiot, right? I knew that that was only one part of the whole story. That end of that, after 3.5 hours of that movie, they all danced their little pretty asses up that staircase. Do you remember the movie? I looked at him, I said, I don't understand what just happened. He goes, well, we have to wait for the next one to come out. I go, well, when does the next one come out? He goes, I don't know, probably in 2 years. I said, I may not even be alive in 2 years. Are you kidding me? I was so pissed. Oh my God. If you're going to tell me to read a series or duology, please tell me and warn me in advance that you have to read the whole thing to understand what the hell is going on. Because I am so pissed about this. And here's the thing. I am now so invested in these characters that I have to read Crooked Kingdom, which I'm not going to read. I'm going to listen to it on Audible. And I'm sure it's probably 17 or 18 hours because it's longer than this one. I just don't understand it. I think it's so unfair of authors to do that. I mean, it's really not a book. It's not a finished book. It's an installment. And I think it's crap. And, you know, and maybe a lot of people disagree with me. Maybe a lot of people love it because they love to read series and they're like, oh, I can't wait till the next one comes out and we get to find out what happens. I agree with that. I love books that do that. I love books where it's like, you know, I just found out yesterday that Julie Murphy is writing a sequel to Dumplin' that comes out next year. You guys know Dumplin' is one of my all-time favorite books, right? But Dumplin' as a standalone is just fine. I'm sure her next one as a standalone will be just fine. We don't need to have 2 of them to just understand the whole story, right? So this whole idea of this cliffhanger is crap to me. I am so mad. I just could not believe it. I mean, it literally just walks off and you have no clue what, I mean, you have to read the second one. So if I don't read the second one, I have wasted this entire time reading this book, which was okay, but not a 5-star at best. People that give this book a 5-star, I'm sorry, okay? I don't know what y'all read, and you can completely disagree with me in the comment sections, and I love people that come to me and say, well, you should have seen it this way or that. I mean, there's a lot of symbolism in this book that's beautifully written. There's a lot of relationship building in here that I love. There's a lot of things that are done really, really well that I think the world building around those issues normalizes it, if that makes sense. But that being said, could it not, this is what I really thought reading it. I thought the whole journey, adventure, deal as a deal, I thought that was going to be wrapped up in book 1. And if you loved it enough, which I was loving it enough at the end, you could read book 2 and find another adventure or another journey. But instead what I find out is, oh no, we're not asking you to read the sequel. You have to read the sequel. Well, as a reader, I like to be given options, you know? I like to read a book as a standalone. If there's a sequel, if I want to read it, I can come back to it. But now I literally feel like I have read a book and like DNF'd it in the middle. That's how I feel like. I feel like I have left a book unfinished and I haven't read that. And I can say this for Cinder from Marissa Meyer. I do feel like that story was enough wrapped up. I feel like if you wanted to know the whole story of the whole world, then you could go on and you could read the other books. But I felt like standalone, like as alone, Cinder could stand alone. I really did. But this book, no. What's all the hype about? And if I read Crooked Kingdom, say that 5 times fast, and it lets me down, I am going to be so pissed, okay? I mean, I just am going to be so pissed. I just don't understand it. I was so through when I finished this book last night. You guys, I was really loving this book. I was ready to come on here and make a review and say, I thought this book was shit for the first half, but I absolutely fell in love with it. And for that reason alone, that one reason alone at the end, I just can't get behind it. It just really pissed me off. I gave this 3 stars. And I was ready to give it 4.5, 5 stars last night because I loved the end of it and the development finally when I understood what these characters were. It's just, you know, I read this series of books by Rhiannon Frater. It's As the World Dies books or zombie books. I love Rhiannon Frater. She's an amazing author, right? And there's 3 books in the series. If you like zombie books, go check out Rhiannon Frater if you haven't heard of her. And she is an author on Twitter that is very interactive with people that read her books. And she also does a podcast for Z Nation. But she wrote one huge book, okay? I think it was something like 1,200 pages or 1,500 pages, and she split it into 3 books. But each book alone could totally stand on its own. You don't need the next book to define the book before it. And all 3 books together make this amazing world, okay? This amazing experience. But if you don't want the whole thing, you can just read the first book and you're completely fine. You could just read the second book and you wouldn't even have to have read the first book and you'd be completely fine. That's the real art to being an author, when you don't have to depend on your next book to explain your first. It really pisses me off. So anyway, those are just my thoughts. That's why I don't read series. That's why I read standalones, because I want the whole story to be wrapped up at the end. That doesn't mean that when I read a standalone that I don't wish for a sequel, because a lot of times I do, you know, a lot of times I do. But by and large, I don't, because I'm done with the story. I'm ready to move on and see what next world that author can create, instead of being forced to have to read something that was just okay at best. Anyway, I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me on that, and that's okay. And that's what I love about BookTube, is that we can all have different opinions and we don't have to agree with everybody on everything, you know. And would you guys please, in the comment section below, if you liked Crooked Kingdom and you think I need to read it, will you please put it down there? If it wraps up the story, if I read it and it's going to complete it for me and I can walk away and go, you know what, that was a really great duology, I feel like I really spent my time well, please put it in the comment section below and I will give it an honest try, because I really want to find out what happens to this cast of characters that I really fell in love with. Anyway, I love you guys, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.